Hello, independent illustration students. This video is for those that have missed or Swanson missed for Tuesday and Thursday of March 2nd and 4th. Yes, sorry if those dates are wrong. Okay, so previous week I had you look at two particular scenes in Beauty and the Beast, and then we had to storyboard them. We're now going to really jump in and look at how different countries and cultures use storyboarding to show comics, animations, as well as any kind of graphic novel. So we're going to be looking at analyzing different countries in relation to Western, i.e. the US, and how they make their comics. Okay, but before we do that, I'm going to be showing you some artwork. So Manintu Henin, she's a Swedish illustrator who has predominantly been working with Dark Horse. I believe she also worked with Bungie or Ubisoft. I think it was Ubisoft. I've been following her for years, and she is wonderful and has currently had a recent interview with Dark Horse talking about her collaboration and working with the cast of Critical Role in the production of the Vox Machina origin story comics. I believe this is her artwork on the cover, and she also was a part of some of the stories within it, like as in illustrating it. And so her interview is posted here. If you want to read it, you can. However, comic art isn't just limited to, let's say, just fan art. Gabriel Piccolo, also more commonly known as @_Piccolo or Piccolo-kun on DeviantArt, is currently kind of like in a hot spot with his comic focusing on the DC character Beast Boy. He has worked with Dark Horse in particular in illustrating and creating these beautiful illustrations of the boy that is green. He also is kind of well known on Instagram and Tumblr for doing these beautiful illustrated sketchbook drawings. His ongoing original series, Icarus in the Sun, has gained quite a reputation in both cosplay and fan art. Daryl Tao is a Malaysian illustrator and freelance designer. His claim to fame is creating this anonymous character known as Fox Mask, where you see this character who's wearing kind of like a kabuki Fox Mask, and we don't actually know what his face looks like. His recent collaboration is done with Caleb Holmquist in the Unicorn Vampire Hunter series, which I actually got to kickstart. Just talking about a young girl who is wanting to learn magic, but in a world where it is subjugated with vampires, suddenly is saved by a unicorn, and they have decided to save the day and go kill vampires with a unicorn on her side. So not your typical kind of character in distress kind of thing. Taro Dow also has done a couple of art challenges on Instagram recently, taking a single one-word prompt and illustrating it. The story that he created was quite an amazing and comical story about three adventurers, technically: a faun, a druid, and a doggo. I love the series. It was really wonderful to see. No dialogue was actually shown in the comic series altogether. It was just visual storytelling with the use of storyboarding. His other comic that he illustrated talks about this spiritualist person who gets rid of ghosts, goes into a haunted house and discovers that this haunted house has an actual particular story. It was spooky, but also very well laid out in terms of design and composition. Okay, so gave you some examples of how some different artists from around the world are using storyboarding to visually tell a story. Now we're digging into the very distinct differences between Western and Eastern comic styles. Starting first with the well-known difference of you got your DC universe as well as Japan's manga style. Here are the key differences between both of them, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping my camera around. Western comics are moving left to right and then down. They are typically almost always in full color, and their boxes are generally more static in comparison to the Japanese manga, which move right to left and then over. Japanese manga is generally black and white, but their boxing and composition is a lot more dynamic and more engaging in comparison to the rigid Western Sunday comic rectangular or square layout. Moving on to some more examples. We still are using our DC universe for the states on your left, but the interesting thing is that China has their own version. of comics. Their comics are called manhua. I believe I am butchering it, so I apologize. But the interesting thing is that their comics, though similar in styling and composition as American Western comics, they're in full color. So very similar, but engaging nonetheless. So key differences. Hold on. Switching slides. Okay. Western comics again, move left to right, and Western comics are in full color. Manhwa is full color and generally static. So very, very similar in composition and design. So how does this apply? Why? This applies because you are going to be charged of retelling a story. So I'm going to read this slide. Students are to create a storyboard retelling of a classic fairy tale. These storyboard retellings are to demonstrate your understanding of visual composition, frame styling, and visual storytelling. Students are to select one story and visually retell that story from the following list. There are 5: Rapunzel, Sleeping Beauty, Little Red Riding Hood, Arabian Nights, almost most commonly known as Aladdin, and The Little Mermaid. Here's the thing though. Disney versions are not OG. Look at the original stories. If you have to Google it, please, because the Disney versions are actually PG. The original stories, either from Brother Grimm or from the various ethnic authors back in the day, mostly I'm talking about Arabian Nights, they're a little bit darker than the original story. So please do some research and do not base your current understanding of the actual story that you grew up knowing. Here's a little fun fact. The Little Mermaid, Ariel actually turns into bubbles in the end because she doesn't fall in love with she doesn't get her one true love in the end. She gives him up and turns into bubbles, okay? But considering that this is a kids movie, Disney had to make it kind of PG. So do your research, find out what the original story is, and go from there. So you have to pick one out of that list of 5 stories. This continues. Move my camera up. Your storyboard retellings are also to have the following. They need to be monochromatic, one color. I don't care what color. It has to be one color. If you want to keep it black and white, you can do that. You need to use between 7 to 13 frames. No dialogue whatsoever. Okay? So this should visually tell a story. Dialogue is insignificant right now because right now you are focusing and learning how to still carry that story through without the use of dialogue or speech bubbles. Each frame is to be at least 3 inches by 3 inches in size. Overall size is at least 10.5 inches by 12 inches. So pretty much your standard piece of paper, just a little bit bigger. Use at least 3 different frame styles. I'm talking wide shot, close up, extra close up, full long shot, master shot. You need to use 3 of those in your whole entire thing. Backgrounds are to be placed depending on frame style. If you were doing a close-up of a character, like their eyes or in their face, I don't want to see a background because you're totally taking away from the whole point of that. However, if you have a wide shot or a full shot, I hope to see some backgrounds. And the last one, obviously, is media is of the student's choice. You get to choose what you want to do. Since it's going to be in black and white, you can choose for it to be in colored pencil. You can choose if you want to be in graphite. You can choose for it to be in watercolor or acrylic paint. It is up to you what your media is. So, in terms of deadline, these are going to be due on April. Sorry, guys, I'm looking at my calendar right now. On April 1st. So, you have a couple weeks. For those of you that are in class and you have your deadline, this is what we're going to be doing in the meantime. Remember, artists first have to research, process, and kind of look at things in order before they even put down their first pencil stroke. So the first thing you're going to be doing is this. For the second half of class, you are going to research, experiment, and observe 2 potential stories. I listed 5. I want you to research 2 of those stories and figure out which one you want to do. Remember, don't base it off your Disney movie because the original storyline is a lot darker and completely different from the Disney version. So you're going to figure out what the original story is and figure out what media, what kind of framing, and what you want to focus on. You have 7 to 13 frames to do this. I think I said that right, yeah. Okay, and then you're going to create some really rough drafts of those 2 potential stories. That is the first part. Remember, this is going to be due on April 1st, so you have some time to work on it. With that being said, since I only see you 2 days a week, you are going to have to be working on this on your free time. All right? So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. If not, I'll see you in class.